Hey guys, welcome to the Chill Zone, my beautiful data pioneers. Today is going to be one of those special days because we have quite a bit of topics to cover today. Today, we're going to be dropping them bombs on bombs on bombs. Just names, just building, just the Origin Trail team pioneering forever and ever. Guys, if you like this video, if you like this sort of content, like, share, and subscribe. You know your boy is trying to get deeper into the chill zone, so you guys need to chill out with me. Guys, today, we are going to be talking about Poseidon BSI and the world's first international multimodal compliance standard that will support GDP in the backbone of international trade in all of the pharmaceutical industry. Are you guys ready to explore this amazing partnership? Without further ado, without wasting any more of your precious time, let's begin our deep dive. So this all started when Yuri posted this, a great piece by Courtney, Global Sector Director of Healthcare BSI, highlighting how products like A-Trust, powered by the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, enhance supply chain visibility and integrity and ensure pharma products reach their intended partners. Of course, we all know Courtney on this channel because previously when we spoke about BSI and Big Pharma, we were actually covering a release from Courtney. Because when we look at Twitter, we saw that Ziga, the co-founder of OriginTrail, posted, "Not much talk needed when partners says it all." So when we check deeper into what was posted, it says, "Our healthcare sector team is closely working with our strategic partner Trace Labs to offer the end-to-end data management through a decentralized knowledge graph, allowing all supply chain systems, audit management, diversion, track and trace, product traceability, planning, and logistic operations to be linked into one data management hub for dashboard macro events." We have finally worked out a neutral way, and I want to highlight to everyone here, they say neutral. We have finally worked out a neutral way to link all internal supply chain systems to drive data, analytics, and ultimately visibility. Read further details in linked article. And who are they linking? This is the BSI, the British Standard Institution, linking the very same article that we were just discussing. Origin Trail is truly flexing their muscles in the industry right now. So when we dive a little bit deeper into this presentation, we see her talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has been eye-opener for all of us. It's been devastating for those personally affected and hugely challenging for all countries as they try to gain access to vaccines to protect their people. Furthermore, it has made pharmaceutical companies a household name and thus a brand to maintain. At present, pharmaceutical companies do not have the visibility or data to provide traceability to the final clinical destination of their medicines, resulting in a large percentage of medicines not reaching their intended patients. Transparency in supply chain and traceability of medicines from production to end patient is required to best mitigate supply chain risk, such as risk of temperature excursions, counterfeit medicines, diverted medicines, and of medicines being used past their expiry date. End-to-end traceability and risk management in pharmaceutical supply chain protects the brand and reputation of the pharmaceutical company, but most importantly, ensures the quality and safety of the medicines they do when they do reach their patients. For example, if someone takes the Pfizer vaccine right now and they die, of course, Pfizer's name is going to get dragged through the mud. So to protect your brand, you want to make sure that you want to reduce as much chances of something like that happening as possible. So in order to do that, you need to know where your products are at all times. You need to know the quality of your products at all times, and this is why you would leverage IoT devices in combination with things like blockchain, and so in order to leverage those technologies to constantly know the status of your raw materials, the status of your materials. So when we skip a little bit further down, it says BSI has partnered with Poseidon, the independent pharmaceutical logistics network, to bring greater quality and certainty to the global distribution of medicines and vaccines. We are developing a multimodal compliance and standards MMCS program to help promote, monitor, and assess adherence to the GDP, the Goods Distribution Practice regulation that underpin global pharmaceutical logistics. We are in consultation with over 100 participants, pharma companies, logistics companies, academics, scientists to ensure the GDP standard we set out to develop are those which address specific quality GDP challenges and solve the issue of the fragmented nature of regulations within the pharmaceutical distribution. Now, we could finish reading the rest of this as it does have additional juicy information in there, but we're going to focus on this particular part of the news. Now, the first thing that's probably going through your mind is, who is Poseidon? Trust me, when I first saw it, I was like, what the hell? Who the hell is Poseidon? I don't know who you are, and I've been following OriginTrail and BSI for some time. So, of course, the next best step is to figure out who Poseidon is. So when we dive into Poseidon, we see it says here, a world-class pharma cold chain. The transportation and temperature of sensitive pharma products is big business. The global logistics market for pharmaceuticals is currently valued at 75 billion, with a growing proportion of this being temperature controlled. So if you put the global pharmaceutical market cap in context of crypto, well, we could see that that would be number 4 on CoinMarketCap, right below Tether at 78 billion. So who is Poseidon? Poseidon is conceived as a pharma sea freight program that by harnessing and honing the collaborative skills that have been so successfully employed in other industry sectors is bringing the industry most enlightened and forward-thinking organizations together to develop and implement a game-changing global pharma sea freight service. So that is what Poseidon does. How did they come to be? Poseidon came about from a small meeting of like-minded individuals at the European Temperature Controlled Logistics Conference at London in January 2017. There was consensus that for any degree of wholesale across the board improvement in the pharma cold chain, there would need to be a more legitimate alignment of the supply chain stakeholders. Now, all of this should sound very familiar because this is the actual goal of OriginTrail. If you pay attention to that video where I covered BSI and how we are the perfect fit for Pfizer and whatnot, you would see that I did mention there that BSI seems to be wanting to have a stake in the pharma cold chain. They want to revolutionize the pharma cold chain. Let's play that clip right now. We need to take our time with this baby, you see, because in 2014, 2 global pharmaceutical companies in partnership with an NGO pledged to donate and distribute up to 1 billion international units of cold chain pharma product for use in developing countries over 10 years. So what we're seeing here is BSI focusing on their cold chain pharma use case. Now, what is cold chain pharma? Do you think that this means anything? Let's explain the significance of cold chain pharma and why this is such a big deal. Now, in this article released on the 25th of August 2020, it was last updated in July 26, 2021. So it is to be considered a recent article, okay? This makes sense today. It says the global pharmaceutical cold chain logistics industry isn't like any other logistics market. It's huge, it's complex, and much of the cargo is life-saving, literally. Valued this year at $73 billion, the industry of cold chain logistics requires harmonized handling procedures, specific transport equipment, and a high degree of regulatory compliance. My friends, by now these things should be starting to sound very familiar because we've been saying it over and over since the beginning of this video. This is the target market. This is what we're going for alongside BSI. So now we see why they're partnering up with Poseidon, because this is exactly what I suspected that they're trying to do some time ago. So let's see, who cares about Poseidon? Does Poseidon have anyone that uses their logistics network that we know or care about? Well, the answer to that is yes. If you do not know who Johnson & Johnson is, Novartis is, GSK, GE Healthcare, if you don't know some of these are some of the largest pharmaceutical entities on the globe today, and they are participant shippers of Poseidon. So with BSI and Poseidon working together, you can see that. So perhaps the OriginTrail decentralized network may be tapping into the data of these massive pharmaceutical entities, and not just these ones, all of them. But how true is that? Is there any ongoing collaboration at the data, at the technological level between Poseidon and BSI? Well, you know what? Let's dive even deeper. But before we get into all of that, we must explain what GDP is. So now that we've got most of the background done on these entities, let's start this explaining what the GDP is and what the MMCS is in relation to the GDP. On the European Medicines Agency website, it says the good distribution practice. The good distribution practice describes the minimum standards that a wholesale distributor must meet to ensure that the quality and integrity of medicines is maintained throughout the supply chain. Compliance with GDP ensures that medicines in the supply chain are authorized in accordance with European Union legislation. Medicines are stored in the right conditions at all times, including during transport, which of course, if you're tracking during transport, that means you have IoT data that needs to be absorbed. Contamination by or of other products is avoided. An adequate turnover of stored medicine takes place. The right product reaches the right addressee with a satisfactory time period. The distributor should also put in place a tracing system to enable finding faulty products and effectively recall procedure. Now, these things may sound like, oh yeah, OriginTrail does all of these things. Well, the GDP was not necessarily established around OriginTrail. It existed prior to OriginTrail. So this is things that people have been trying to practice and achieve since the beginning. But the main issue with the GDP is it is also voluntary in terms of how it's applied. Of course, you must be GDP compliant, but how you apply GDP may be up to the industry, maybe up to the partner, maybe up to that particular supplier, that particular network, that particular vendor. So what we see is a whole bunch of different entities applying GDP in their own way. Every entity is performing their own amount of research on a logistics supply. Every entity is doing their own audits. Every entity is doing their own work. So when you think about it, we have all the pharmaceutical players doing the exact same work, but independently and not sharing any of the results, which leads to what? Basically, this is a lot of money spent in duplicated efforts. When we talk about money, a lot of money spent in duplicated efforts.
Okay, now I want to very briefly open with just a tiny bit of background on the current GDP regulatory framework. Although the EU guidelines that were introduced in 2013 have formed a template for many subsequent national regulations, even within the EU, the interpretation of GDP is open to wide interpretation. To a large extent, this is because firstly, GDP is necessarily non-prescriptive in nature, and secondly, the guidance has been enacted in the form of a community directive rather than a community regulation. And it is also interesting to note that the EUDRA GDMP, EUDRA standing for EU Drug Regulatory Authority, database currently lists no less than 378 national competent authorities. So you can see immediately the scope for interpretation and variance in the enactment and enforcement of the regulations just within the EU.
So it's important to find alignment between the GDP and all its suppliers, all its participant members, which is why we will now start talking about the MMCS. So let's take a read of the official BSI release as it relates to the MMCS program. It says the MMCS program is relevant to pharmaceutical shippers and their end-to-end distribution partners. It will interpret the prevailing local and international GDP regulations and guidelines for each of the main long-haul transport modes and provide a full range of GDP support, standard development, assessment, and training services. So the MMCS is going to be like this all-inclusive program. And to be clear, the MMCS is multimodal because it will connect all forms of transport into one domain. Right now you have air shipping, you have sea shipping, and all these different various modes of transport, but they're all independently maintained. They're not necessarily connected together, which will allow for that end-to-end traceability. So the MMCS basically is connecting all of the global supply chain for the pharmaceutical industry into one domain. Of course, competitors will still exist within this domain. We're just talking about the regulation and all of the infrastructure work being connected to one, which will allow for that end-to-end traceability. Now, but it's more than just also that traceability. It's also about allowing for training services, which we know that BSI does training. We know that BSI does all of these standards development already. So the real question is, how can BSI and Poseidon get all of these independent industry players to work together when we know that they are competitors? They all, Courtney herself said in one of her videos that she spoke with a pharmaceutical company. They have a whole training program for GDP. It's all internal, it's very expensive, and they do not share it with any other company. How can they get all of these different pharmaceutical companies with their own agendas to collaborate? And here we see this statement. The respective strengths of BSI and Poseidon will combine to produce a collaborative industry-wide GDP compliance capability that is designed to bring best practice to the industry. Alan Kennedy, the executive director at Poseidon, stresses that much of the strength and legitimacy of the new program stems not only from Poseidon's track record, material resources, and intellectual assets of its core stakeholders, but also their impartial status. The strict impartiality and independence of both BSI and Poseidon is absolutely fundamental to the objectivity of the program and in securing the support and patronage of shippers, regulators, and the rest of the stakeholders in the value chain.
And also, I would just say, before I turn over to Alan around the neutral and independence pieces, Alan mentioned it, we, BSI, are a royally chartered organization. We are not for profit distribution. So the neutrality and the status of a national standards body means we are a consensus-based program. So the concept of having a neutral and independent third parties in Poseidon and BSI, and I'll let Alan talk to the Poseidon piece, is that realistically we're able to take this neutral and independence and do good for the market. And this market is pharma quality and supply chain.
Yes, I would just like to endorse that by saying that the validity of regulatory compliance and supply chain standardization is contingent on the complete and demonstrable impartiality, objectivity, and freedom of vested interest of all the parties involved, whether that be in guiding, monitoring, or assessing conformity, or in the development of standards. Team Poseidon, as a neutral trustee party, is a completely independent body.
It's important for Poseidon and BSI or anybody that's undertaking this sort of global initiative to be neutral, to be impartial, because who owns the data? Who owns the IP? If you're in control of it, then you are in control of my organizations, and organizations won't like that. So it needs to be a third party that is neutral to everybody, and nobody and everyone can trust. And this is why BSI is in the position to bring this sort of change to the pharmaceutical industry through their instruments of trust, which leverages the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, because the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph itself is open source, is neutral, is inclusive. So now you're seeing all of the things that OriginTrail is really embodied in this initiative itself. It is a direct alignment with our initiative and goals and all the things we plan to achieve in the future. So when researching the MMCS to get more information on it, well, what you stumble upon is this very video here that says MMCS GDP Pharma Standardization Introduction in July. Now, in this presentation, you're going to see quite a bit of things. For example, we have the Cluster for Logistics in Luxembourg openly stating that they will support this initiative.
Cooperation between those players is important, and it needs to be strengthened for the different transport modes. And we think that Luxembourg, being highly competent in those transport modes, we can participate here, and some of our players can also support this from this location. Next slide. So we have a small team. That's the team of the Cluster for Logistics, and we fully support Alan Kennedy's activity and initiative here together with BSI, and so I think that's where my starting introduction would.
So I don't know about you, but all that did was make me wonder, who are these guys and what say do they have, what power do they have behind them to even be on this platform supporting BSI and vouching basically for Alan Kennedy the director at Poseidon. Well, when you go through the Cluster for Logistics website, you see what they do, you understand their mission, and when you check their member list to see who is involved, well, you see some small actors, as he did say in his presentation. It's a combination of international bodies as well as local small bodies. So when we start scrolling, well, we start seeing Deloitte, we see DHL, we see FedEx, we see EY. So we're seeing some of the largest entities that we know of a part of this network. Goodyear, I mean, and if we even scroll down some more, we see PwC, Luxembourg, as well as Shell. So some of the largest entities are as a group in full support of what OriginTrail, BSI, and Poseidon is doing together. So we see that this thing is gaining adoption. We see that big players are showing interest in this initiative. In fact, not showing interest. They're not showing interest. They're saying, yes, I agree. Yes, I subscribe. They are willing to participate. So is there any sort of digital platform that would allow for all of these entities to, to work together, to collaborate, to share data, which is of course at the heart of the MMCS program? Let's listen to Alan Kennedy say whether there is or isn't.
On the screen, you'll just see a summary of the key attributes of the MMCS approach, some of which, of course, we've already touched on. I don't need to say any more about neutrality and independence, or indeed the multi-mode applicability of MMCS, which of course marks it out as an innovative and indispensable program, which is a lot more than just a box-ticking certification exercise. But I'll be touching more about certification in a moment in any case. But finally, the unique value proposition of MMCS also stems from its sheer breadth of content, and this is going to be underpinned with a highly secure digital substructure.
So now that we know that there is a digital structure that will underpin this entire structure, this entire ecosystem, whose digital structure? That's important to understand, because as a company, if I am FedEx, if I am DHL, if I am UPS, or if I am any pharmaceutical company, Novartis, all of these companies who are within their network already, if I am any of these entities, well, I'm going to want to make sure that the digital structure that underpins this particular ecosystem is open and secure, very secure, hopefully cryptographically secure. So let's see what Courtney and Alan has to say about this particular digital platform. Enjoy.
And this alignment of sharing audits or sharing assessments. So I guarantee you, well, I know that there are only certain logistics companies that have the capability to ship pharma or to ship vaccine medicines. There are only a certain number. So you are all the shippers are using the same suppliers. All the pharmacos are using relatively the same logistics firms with some geographic tweak to that, right? Or differentiation. So imagine if we were able to say there is one assessment, and you can see this on the slide in the middle, one audit exercise, one training program that sits between the shipper and the supply chain. And if we were able to publicize the audit results or the certificates and publicize the training results so that through a neutral and secure way, the shipper that works with that logistics company can see that individual logistics firm's results, their certificate, their audit results, their training results, so that it is a fully transparent way of ensuring the logistics firms are showing compliance to the shippers, but also the shipper is able to then show the regulator ultimately that they are maintaining the GDP compliance. So we already have between BSI and Poseidon this clearinghouse reference, this sharing platform. We've already got it established. It's been tried and tested in 2 or 3 different industry sectors with a very similar problem statement that we're experiencing in the pharma supply chain. So we not only are thinking it's possible, we know it's possible, we just need you to come along the ride for us. So one of the areas of MMCS is very much around the sharing of audit and sharing of training, and in a combined approach to doing so.
This particular platform is already built between BSI and Poseidon. Now, if we know anything about BSI, we know that at the center of BSI's capabilities, technological capabilities, they leverage the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, or as they say it in their papers, in their independent releases, the BSI OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph. But it makes you question, how in the hell is BSI suddenly able to provide this level of trust and transparency in the pharmaceutical supply chain when this has been something that's been needed, required, and desired for so long? How are they now able to do it? Well, let's dive into the why. And it's because of their newly formed and improved Data Management and Analytical Hub. It says, our Data Management Hub is powered by standards-based data interoperability, enabling real-time supply chain visibility and new advanced client applications. The BSI OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph combines the benefits of knowledge graph, digital standards, and blockchain technology. It enables a highly connected and trusted way of maintaining certificates, training records, supply chain events, and inventory records for distributed products based on, here is the magic word, my guys, and honestly, I just want to take some time to pause right here for dramatic effect, because this is something we've been talking about for so long on this channel, and to see it validated finally by BSI at an international and global level, to know that this one-of-a-kind solution is finally real, that we are finally able to produce unit level product identifiers and have it production ready for traceability and transparency and all the goodness, is just mind-blowing. So I repeat, and inventory records for distributed products based on unit level product identifiers such as GS1 GTINs, allowing for global product traceability correlated into patient utilization data. This is what is being used to bring all of this end-to-end product traceability. Leveraging the decentralized knowledge graph, we're able to also consume IoT data, which allows us to say, hey, this vaccine is at this temperature for this amount of time during shipment, so it is good or bad. All of this stuff can be shared open in a decentralized way via the OriginTrail decentralized network and decentralized knowledge graph. So when we combine the power of BSI's OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, and then we combine the shipping network and all the logistics data and all the open inclusive nature of Poseidon itself, because Poseidon is also like BSI in the sense that they are neutral. They can absorb and work with all of the logistics network, all of the suppliers. They are able to work with every single one. So when you combine both of these systems, the knowledge graph and all of the logistics, well, what you're able to do is then consolidate every single supply chain in an open source way, backed by blockchain, backed by the decentralized knowledge graph, allowing all these suppliers to trust the data that's in there, and they're able to see what's going on. So this, my friends, is a revolutionary shift. This is a one-of-a-kind shift. Where were you when OriginTrail absorbed all of Big Pharma in one go? You were here watching my video. That's a rhyme, and I just made that up. You guys are lucky. You guys are getting free stuff from Chill Zone Famous Amos, you know. As a matter of fact, you guys need to donate. Hey, like, share, subscribe. Do it now. Do it now. So there was another interesting point that I wanted to bring up, because within this particular program, they have a training network for the MMCS initiative. Basically, future leaders, future supply chain leaders will be learning about the MMCS program, but how will they be doing that? How will they gain their credentials? Well, I'm pleased to say to you, all of that will be done on BSI.
Most of the courses will be conducted through the well-established BSI Training Academy, which Courtney touched on a few moments ago. And this is a global reach and trains no less than 200,000 plus people every year with an unrivaled portfolio of courses. Now, training in the MMCS project will be available in a range of formats to suit different needs and circumstances.
And if you guys already know the former case studies we've done with OriginTrail and BSI. OriginTrail is actually being used to facilitate the BSI's training program. So this is more data onto the OriginTrail decentralized network. As is Amos crazy. We've all seen the evidence that OriginTrail and BSI is working together at this extent. We all seen that, but you know, sometimes people just want to shut the naysayers up, just to say, oh no, well, I didn't see OriginTrail on any slide. I didn't see her say OriginTrail once. I didn't see it once. So, or that's not OriginTrail. That's not. It's VeChain. That's VeChain. Nope. We're gonna put all of that to doubt. And we're going to put all of that doubt, all of that FUD, all of that, take it, crumple it up, put it in the trash bin. We're going to hear her talking about the decentralized knowledge graph. Enjoy, OriginTrail family.
Okay, good. We just had another question. A good presentation, interesting initiatives. Thanks. Could we please tell us more of the potential role of IoT devices in this context? Alan, I can take this first, but would welcome your view from a cold chain perspective as well. But specifically around Internet of Things or connected data, connected devices, connected systems. One of the areas of this sharing platform that we've mentioned as the technology interfaces, we are looking at a data interoperability platform that is the basis of this foundation to allow for both public and private secured sharing of information going out to different shippers or to different logistics firms. So it's not specifically IoT, but I just wanted to talk about the data interoperability powered by blockchain and decentralized knowledge graphs is one of the areas that we're really focusing on to make sure that the data is shared, but in a secure but transparent way.
What's really amazing is that we're not even done yet. There is one final thing I really want to get across to you guys. And this is not just some sort of EU initiative, or this is not just some sort of backwater, somewhere you don't even know the name initiative. We have regulators on board on this initiative between both the UK and the US. This is an internationally scoped project. So here, as they drop the bomb,
make sure that they are aware of, they won't ever formally at the beginning accept it, but aware of and informed of the program developing, so that it may not be in year 1 or in year 2 where the regulator substitutes this or acknowledges it formally, but it will come because the noise and the success around the collaboration gets there, and our hopeful involvement of them in the process will allow for that to happen. So that's one thing I would say, and BSI's got a lot of experience generally with working with the regulator. As I mentioned, we are a regulator notified body, acting on behalf of the regulator in the medical device space already with quality management. So it's something we're really familiar with, taking them along the journey to make sure that we get buy-in and acceptance. Alan, I hope anything else from your side that.
No, I hear what you're saying, and Poseidon has spoken to both the UK and the US regulators, and they very much support what we're trying to do and how we're going about it. So, it's in their interest not to be a barrier to any progress with this particular project. But I'm just conscious of the fact we've got a lot of questions now coming up.
So guys, that's really all I wanted to show and talk to you guys about today. Guys, this is single-handedly one of the biggest news in crypto, hands down. And these sorts of magnificent, magnanimous sorts of news always seems to happen at OriginTrail. I wonder why. Well, it's because of the unique technology stack. The decentralized knowledge graph can allow for flexibility in so many areas, so many things, trust and transparency to so many fields. It's not even just about supply chain. This is just our supply chain release. Guys, we're talking about moving into with Akala. We're talking about moving into DeFi, NFTs. We're doing this thing on a global level. Metaverses, it does not matter. We're bringing interoperability. We're bringing that verifiability. We're bringing that discoverability to all domains on Earth. Guys, I am beyond excited for this piece of news. And guess what, guys? It goes live this year. Go ahead, do your research, do some digging. I won't do it all for you. Just do some for yourself. And guys, you know how we sign on the channel. Peace and love. but not just sometimes. Always.